There have been a lot of really wonderful conversations around authenticity lately. It seems to be something that's a synchronicity within the collective. So, what is authenticity? It can be a complicated subject somewhat because in the ego structure, there are aspects of what we think to be authentic. This is just who I am. Yet I think underneath that all is something a little bit more. There is aspects, almost like spectrums of light. So if we imagine a prism here and white light hitting it at this angle and then on the other side splitting into a multitude of colors, there are certain facets of things that seem to arise that are essentially the same thing, that are really a demonstration of our authenticity. And those things can look a lot like a sense of intuition, a knowingness without an intellectual justification, or the unfettered creative expression of who we are in writing, in music, art, poetry, or myriad of other forms. There's also a sense of courage that seems to be built in. When we really tap into our authentic selves, we demonstrate courage to approach things that we would otherwise avoid through the identity and being mind identified. And there's also almost a sense of risk, one that doesn't have a dual sense. It's more that we are allowing ourselves to enter into this as spontaneously as possible, to step deeply into the mystery. So there's a lot of contradictions in this as well. The truest authenticity really has no explanation. Or to kind of put it another way, authenticity makes no apology. And that can be tricky, because if that's co-opted by the ego, that is almost something a narcissist could say, that, oh, I don't apologize about who I am if I'm hurting other people. It's something more than that. There is a sense of compassion there. Authenticity makes no apology when we are completely engaged with the moment, completely engaged with our truest nature. There is no apology. We express how we express. We move through the world in the way that we move through the world. There is no second thought. There is no need for reflection. Some of these things can be explored a little bit further by looking at that which we hide. It seems like the things that we are hiding from others can also inversely show up as something that we're hiding from ourselves. So to really get as authentic as possible, we are allowing ourselves to get vulnerable, intimate into this immediate moment, and to at least reveal to ourselves the things that we want to keep under wraps, the things that we want to keep within the cage. Most of these things really don't have anything to do with anyone else, whether we please someone or not. These things are things that we fear about ourselves. What do we hide? Maybe it's a form of expression. Maybe it's just a natural sense of flowing through the world, yet there's this overlay, this intellectual overlay, this mind-identified overlay that is holding us back, keeping us inhibited to some degree. And it's based on fear. If I am vulnerable and I am revealed and I am completely open, then I am more likely to be hurt. That can show up sometimes as well. This is authenticity. And it might make sense to point out a few other things. This path can be filled with contradictory moments. Sometimes early on in building relationships, some of us don't have any sense of what a boundary is, and we have a chaotic relationship with someone else. And then at a certain point, we learn how to develop and establish interpersonal boundaries. We tolerate something to a certain degree, and we don't tolerate other things. And then it seems that those things also are shed again as we continue down the path where there's no sense of self. And if there is no self, there is nothing to protect. And if there's nothing to protect, then there are no boundaries needed. It becomes really clear by meeting someone exactly where they are that anything coming from them is just an expression of their own pain, and there is no meaning here. There is nowhere for this to land. This coincides quite a bit with authenticity. The first thing that we can do, the first thing that we can start with on this path is to be 100% ourselves. And I'm not talking about what we think we are, but to get to the very core of this sense of intuition and creativity, courage, sense of risk, all of these pieces, to really come in contact with the things that we hold back, the things that come out naturally and effortlessly, yet for some reason we want to keep them bottled up. Be yourself 100%, not in the mind-identified way, but in the way that allows expression to just come forth. And sometimes that can take some refining. Sometimes that expression can be blunt, or it can come across a little sideways, but that's okay. This is what I mean by playing that I pointed out in a previous video. To find low-stakes situations and to play where we allow ourselves to be and flow and just demonstrate our authenticity in an effortless and natural way. Then, after we reach a place of being 100% ourselves and being entirely human, then we begin to see where that begins to take us deeper. And who knows, you might see that those layers will peel away and it will lead you to a sense of there is no self. There is only authenticity. I look at my dog often and he doesn't really make any apologies about who he is. He's just Amadeus. And even if he's in trouble sometimes or he needs to go outside, he might whine a little bit. Overall, he's just comfortable being who he is. I get no sense of any type of inhibition in his behavior. I think we have a lot to learn from our best friends in that way. We can be authentic. We can be fully engaged with our truest nature, at least at the most basic level. And truly, authenticity makes no apology.